Welcome to the Daylan Show. What's going on, everybody? So good to see you. So good to be in front of you and in your ears again. Welcome to the Daylan Show. If you're new, please subscribe. I'm Daylan Flowers, your host. Been doing this for about 5 years now. So this is the fifth season of the Daylan Show, and every single episode I get a little bit of more joy because every single episode is brought in a different dynamic, a different piece of conversation, and a different piece of joy that has never been seen before. So super excited to be back with you guys, and hope you enjoyed episode number 12 with KK Deans. Go check that out. It was super fun. But I'm super excited about today's episode as well. This is someone that I've admired from afar and actually reached out to me about coming on the show. So I'm super excited to chat with him. So please introduce our guest today, Mr. Gary Chupik. Woo!
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me, Daylan.
No, appreciate you for coming on, man. Just before we get going, how are you doing? How's life treating you currently right now, man?
It's good. There's lots of transitions, and I think that's, typical for most people. But yeah, there's a lot of changes and a lot of adjustments and a lot of adapting. So, but you know what? I'm up for it, and I'm really
Yeah.
excited about that.
Yes, sir. Gary, if you don't mind, really quick for people that are watching or listening that may not be familiar about you, could you give yourself like just a brief introduction for people, maybe just where you're from, what you do in your life, and some things you've been able to do across your lifetime to get you where you are today?
Sure. Well, what a great question. We all meander to where we presently are, right? Like we try different
Hmm.
things and do different things. But my name is Gary Chupik from Seattle, Washington, and I'm a mental performance coach in the field of sports psych. And how I got here, like I said, it's sort of a meandering, winding road. But in short,
Hmm.
I was a pastor
Yeah.
for about 28 years. So I'm an ordained minister, and I was leading at the local level, leading at the national level. And then I had sort of a pretty significant burnout. And what I call burnout is a mismanaging my energy and mismanaging myself. And
Yeah.
so I had a kind of a time of recovery. And during that time of recovery, I ended up studying sports psych for about 1,000 hours. And I put about 1,000 hours of study into this one specific field. And then I had the opportunity to meet Russell Wilson's mental performance coach, Trevor Moawad. And Trevor kind of took me under his wings and he mentored me. And he said, you should think about doing this one day. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? I don't think I can do this. But he said, no, I think I think you got what it takes. And so I ended up pursuing a bunch of different certifications and just going out into business on my own. And he actually ended up hiring me for a season, which was really amazing. And then I've since then branched out on my own. He passed away a couple of years ago, but I ended up branching out on my own. And so I've been building this business called Elite Mindset, and it's about how to help and unlock high performers to be even better. So most of the people that I work with, whether it's professional athletes or teams, I do some college, and I've ended up helping business owners a lot more
Yeah.
in the last probably couple of years. And so I would say right now, 50% of my work is with pro team and athletes, and then the other 50% is with high performers in business who realize that there's a lot of crossover between being a professional athlete and being really good in business.
There's so much I want to chat with you about. But I think one thing that's, stands out about what you just said and knowing your journey a little bit is you doing something for so long being a pastor and then finding that burnout at some point in your life and then kind of transitioning in the middle of your career. I want to ask you about your transition. First, what were the indications that you were realizing that I'm burning out? This is not something that I can sustain for a longevity time of period. And what were maybe the few of the initial steps that you took to transition into doing something that you figured out once you got to it that you actually loved and could do something for the rest of your life?
What an insightful question, Dalen. I don't know if I've been asked that before. So I think for me personally, it was like everything that was once easy became hard.
Yeah.
And I just knew it was time to move on and transition to something else. And that's part of the burnout. It's like relationships were really easy to me, but many of them became difficult. Many of the tasks were once easy for me, then they became difficult. And once, at one point, I was really excited about doing a lot of the mundane things. And at some point, it got really hard. It felt like I was walking through quicksand where all these things that were once easy to me became very difficult. And I think the burnout came from like doing those difficult things where I just didn't have energy or fuel for anymore. So that was one of the greatest indicators for me personally that I knew it was time to move on. And then what that transition looked like, it was really interesting because a lot of people wanted me to hang on for longer than I think
Yeah.
that I should have. But and in some instances I really did hang on, and it was to my detriment.
Yes, sir.
I should have been more open to the change and the transition than I was. And partly because I love people. I love doing what I was doing, but it just became more difficult. And in some ways, maybe to use a religious term like God, but I think in some ways it was God's way of like moving me on, because I wanted to be dedicated. I didn't want to be known as a quitter. I wanted to be
Mhm.
loyal. I wanted to have character and integrity. And somehow it feels like God above said, what, I know you're that way. So I'm gonna have to make this really difficult for you, Gary. And so he did that by making everything difficult for me. So that transition, I think the biggest part of my transition for me was, well, first, what do I do next with my life? So that was a big question. And number two is, or was, my identity was so embedded into being a pastor that to think of myself any differently would be just a challenge, and it was. And so I'm 6 years removed. However, I still find it challenging. It's just part of
Yeah.
my identity, and I've come to realize that it's one of my superpowers, that I have a deep love for people, and I want the fruit of my life to grow on other people's trees. So I don't need the credit, I don't need the stage, I don't need the limelight. I just want to make the people around me better. So part of my job now is realizing that my purpose and my mission has never changed. It's still the same,
Yeah.
but my calling and what I do and my assignments can change. They can adapt. But my purpose and my calling are pretty solid. They haven't
Mhm.
changed much, but the assignment has changed. And I needed to learn that the hard way, because maybe I'm stubborn, but that's been the greatest journey, is the way that I see myself.
If you have the opportunity to sit down with someone that's like in their 30s, 40s, and they're having this moment of crisis where they're getting paid well at their job, or they're dividing the task within their profession, but they're not fulfilling the goals or the life lessons that they feel they have for their career and their life. What would you want to tell someone in the midst of maybe they're at a point where they feel like they can't transition to a different career or a different job, but they're not loving what they do? What advice or what piece of, maybe information would you want to tell someone that is maybe in the midst of their past career, but are still struggling to find that love in doing what they do, and are maybe finding
Mm.
the love and energetic pieces in other things in their lives?
Yeah, again, a really insightful question. There's probably different angles to the diamond of change and transition. Like
Mhm.
one of them would be, well, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like what do you want? A preliminary question is, who are you?
Mhm.
And so, like, figuring you out, like, you're the puzzle, you got to figure you out. And if you could sort of emotionally detach yourself from who you are and just kind of lay on a table in some ways, and like let someone dissect you a little bit. Well, what if you could sort of do that for yourself and say, well, who am I? What would someone do with the skills, talents, and natural ability that I have? What would someone like me do for a living? And so just sort of like take that out of body experience and just kind of lay yourself on the surgical table and just say, well, who am I? Like, what would a person with my skill set and talent do for a living? And I think that's like the identity question, like, who am I? It's probably the most important one that you can ask yourself. This next question would be, well, what do I want? And that's a really crucial question. So, I think a lot of people are constantly asking themselves, even subconsciously, well, what does everyone else around me want me to be?
Mhm.
And where do I
Yeah.
get my affirmation from? And if I get affirmed by being a certain way or doing certain behaviors, then I'll get people to like me. But it's not really helpful, because the crowd around you changes. They have
Mhm.
different demands that they might place on you, or they might like different aspects of your personality, but it's really not worth fashioning your life over. And so answering the question, what do I want, is like a really big one. And me being a person of faith, I'd always say, well, God, what do you want me to do? Like, and even if you're not spiritual, you could still ask yourself the existential question, like, why am I here? Like, what should I do with my life? What's my purpose? And I think that's the question of saying, like, what do I want, is really important, because if it's identity based, then you can, well, let me draw the distinction. If it's passion based and you just follow your passions, well, I don't know about you, but my passions change over time.
Yes,
So
sir.
I might be passionate about something for a while, but be passionate about something else. So being passion driven is not really that helpful, but being identity driven is actually exceptionally helpful, because the
Yeah.
things that you are based on your identity, you're probably pretty good at those things already. It doesn't take a lot of effort. It's kind of like, a bird flying into the wind versus a bird that just sort of floats on the wind. So you're already good at those things,
Yeah.
and it doesn't take a lot of effort, and so you can kind of float a little bit into it. So my question would be, is like, well, who are you and what do you want? And that, answering that question is crucial, because if you don't know what you want, you'll always be hesitant and unsure of pursuing it. And if you're unsure or uncertain of pursuing something, you won't have the stamina or the resilience to kind of keep going when it gets tough, because the tough times are going to come. But if you have that sense of like, no, 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 this is who I am and this is what I want, well, you're answering two massive questions that are absolutely necessary to figuring out where you should go with your life in your 20s and 30s. And so after you answer, who am I and what do I want, the third one is, well, why do I want it? And there's a great book by Simon Sinek, it's about, know your why, right? Start with
Mhm.
why. But it was really interesting. I learned this from Pete Carroll from the Seattle Seahawks and now the Raiders. Is he said, Gary, it starts with why, but it ends with who. So who is your why? So for a lot of NFL players, it is like, well, I want this for, I want to buy a house for my mom, or I want to provide for my family, or, I have a grandmother or some other significant person or a spouse or a loved one. Maybe that's their who. And so
Yeah.
if you tie it to a who, it becomes very emotional, and we're emotional beings. So that can be really valuable. So it's know who you are, know what you want, know why you want it. And then finally, I hate to say this, but it's just true. It's how badly do you want it?
Mm.
And if you want something really badly, you'll sacrifice a lot for it. But if you're just willing to put in a minimal amount of effort toward what you want, it's probably not enough. So answering those four questions in your 20s and 30s about thinking about, like, can I do a transition? Well, yeah, of course you can do a transition. Listen, quitting is one of the best things you could ever learn to do in your life. It sounds so strange to say it that way, but there's a great book by Henry Cloud called Necessary Endings, and it's learning that quitting is one of the smartest things you can possibly do. And we think, well, so much of our emotional well-being is tied to, in our identity of not being a quitter or not being someone who transitions all the time. Listen, quitting is one of the smartest things you can possibly do. And if you can sort of detach yourself from the emotional baggage that comes along with quitting, listen, doing something that's not healthy for you is really smart. People do this in business all the time. They see something that's not working because it's not producing the finances that they need to sustain the business. And if they don't quit that really quickly, then their business is going to go under. So
Yes,
quitting is
sir.
one of the most wonderful, beautiful things that you can do.
Thank you. That was very, very valuable. Gary, could you just talk about elite mindset and what that is, and just the history of why you wanted to become and do elite mindset, and what has it been able to do for your career and your life so far?
Yeah. So being in leadership for 30 years in the counseling and pastoral world, do a lot of coaching. I think I just became so familiar with the language of counseling and coaching and therapy
Hmm.
that it wasn't useful to me. It sounds so, I mean, I've counseled and coached over, thousands of people, but
Mhm.
it wasn't helpful for me. And so when I started to discover the language of sports psychology, I was like, oh, I died and gone to heaven. It was like learning a new computer language, and I knew the language. So I was an athlete growing up. I played a little bit of football, and getting reacquainted with my former younger self, that competitive side of me, was just such a huge blessing. And that's why I studied 1,000 hours of sports psych, not so that I could do it one day, but it was just helpful to me. And
Yeah.
so Elite Mindset began with my desire to heal from some of my own brokenness. And so it worked. It just was so powerful for me. It just gave me a different operating system or computer language to think of my own life. And so as I sort of developed that knowledge and that skill, Elite Mindset was born. And it was, it was, relationships were a big part of that. And meeting Russell Wilson's mental performance coach Trevor Moad, that was really an important part of it as well. But that's kind of where it was born. And then the so one day Trevor had said to me, Gary, if you were going to help an athlete, what model or process would you use to do that? And so my assignment for the next month was to come up with that process. So when I came up with that process and put it on one sheet of paper, he was like, Gary, this is brilliant. Like, we need to hire you. So that began sort of that entire journey when I didn't really believe in myself maybe so much, but to have someone of his caliber believe in me, I was like, okay, Gary, wake up, like quit being so hard on
Yeah.
yourself. Maybe he does see something that you really do have a talent for this. But in that time where I was trying to figure out what was next in my life, like what does Gary 4.0 look like?
Mhm.
Um, I, I, it's hard to describe, Daylan, but I had all these sheets on my wall, like a John Madden teleprompter, and I was
Mhm.
drawing X's and O's and
Yeah.
arrows and just trying to figure me out. Like how am I wired? What are the things that I'm good at? And how could I do this? Well, what should I do for a living based on the skill, talent, and ability that I have? So once someone came into my house one day, into my office, and said, Gary, have you ever thought about like making a product out of this? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he said, well, you obviously are good at figuring stuff out, and what if you did this for a living? And so I thought to myself, I wonder if he's right. So born out of that time where I was trying to figure out what to do with my life, I actually ended up creating something called the game plan for life. And so
Yeah.
it's how to live like an elite athlete, elite performer, and take that mentality into the other parts of your life. And so now I do something called the game plan for life, where I teach high performers, primarily, athletes, but I've done it with moms and business owners and students, how to live a high performance lifestyle that results in whole life excellence. So I really created two things: the Elite Mindset and Mental Performance System, how to think like a professional athlete, and I
Mhm.
do work with athletes, and then also how to live a high performance life, which is called the game plan for life.
What's going on, family? I hate to interrupt the video going on right now. Hope you guys are enjoying it, but I have to give a quick shout out to our very first sponsor, Shadrach's Coffee. Shadrach's is a coffee company that has been in the works for 17 years now. Originally originated in the state of Arkansas, my home state, and now they have ventured to Tennessee and Oxford, Mississippi. Shadrach's has opened their arms to me and put their faith in me, and I just want to say thank you to Shadrach's. If you're in Oxford, you can find Shadrach's at 1797 Jackson Avenue West here in Oxford. And even if you're on the Ole Miss campus, they have different locations on their food truck aisles across the campus. They're usually open at their Jackson Avenue Center from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Yeah, so just continue to go get your Shadrach's coffee. You get espressos, energy drinks, hot coffee. You can even get some milkshakes. Shadrach's is the place to go. Even you can get some Shadrach's apparel on their website, like I'm showing you here. And my favorite thing about everything about Shadrach's is they're centered around our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So you can go on the Shadrach's website and you can file a prayer request for yourself, for your friend, or family, anybody. All you have to do is click on prayer request here, type in the name, email, phone number, and your message, and Shadrach's will take care of it. They've done over 1,000 prayer requests in their 17 years of the company, and this is their
goal. They are centered around profiting and making Jesus Christ their goal. So thank you guys so much. And thank you, Shadrach, for the sponsor. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. God bless.
When you first started this, was it scary? Was it kind of like how do I move forward with doing my own thing and now being on a different landscape that I've never been in before in my career? What was that kind of transition like from being something and doing something for so long in your life and then to being something kind of not new, but like a new kind of formation of your lifestyle?
Oh, it was totally scary. It was totally scary. Like you end up saying to yourself, like, am I a fraud? And can I do this? And you have all those that self-doubt, that voice is so loud in your own mind. And you don't have really a lot of I mean, you do have a lot of track record of helping people and coaching people, but it's in a little bit of it's a different assignment, right? Like you got like there's new things to learn, new environment, new people. I remember when I gave my first talk to a football team, a good football team. And I came into it, and it was like a 2-day event. And so
Mhm.
my first day, I came into it talking like a pastor. And pastors are, they're so self-deprecating because they want to be relatable to their audience. Yeah, I
Yeah.
struggle with this too, or we're all human, we all make mistakes. And so I kind of went into it like in that type of mindset. And I think I confused everybody in the audience. They were like, well, wait a minute. Like, aren't you supposed to be the confident, super mentally strong stud?
Mhm.
Like, aren't you supposed to? So I think the day one was kind of a disaster. And then day two, I was like, and I noticed that night, I was like, why aren't people responding to me? Like, I don't understand. I think I'm so relatable. But I knew that I had to come back different the next day. And so the day two, I came in very different, like ultra confident, ultra resilient, ultra sure of myself and what I was saying. Not like I was like, inviting feedback. I was telling people what your mindset needs to be successful. And I think at that moment, I realized that I need to live out what I preach. Like need to live out what I talk. And so I needed to come across far more confident and less hesitant. And that was really helpful to me. But the transition was, yeah, you have all sorts of doubts and whatever. But listen, this whole thing is about proving to yourself that you can do something. And I think for me, I have proven that a lot of my coaching was effective, albeit I'm in a little bit of a different environment now. It's a different assignment, but I had brought those older skills into what I was doing in the new assignment. And that was my track record, a track record of success. So optimism is always proving to yourself that there's a reason to be optimistic. Like positivity can come and go. Like you can be positive, but then the next moment your positivity's out the window.
Yeah.
However, optimism always requires a reason for you to be optimistic. So what was the reason that I could give myself to be optimistic that I can operate in this new environment? It was because I had already helped thousands of people. And so for me, it was like, yeah, I have a track record to sort of look back on and know that I'm going to be successful.
Mhm. Gary, since your time doing Elite Mindset and the game plan, has there been a favorite maybe moment, event, speech, story, maybe interview that you've been able to do, or a conversation with anybody? Has been a moment for you that stands out, and you just think in the back of your head, "This is exactly why I do what I do because of moments
Hmm.
like this or conversations like this." Has there been any moment? What has been that moment, or maybe a few moments for you since you started doing this that have really just been like the key perpetrator to being, "This is why I do what I do."
Yeah, Daylan, I mean, there are so many. It's
Mhm.
so hard to choose because I live a very gifted life. I don't mean I'm gifted. I just mean so many experiences where people say to me, Gary, my life has changed. Almost, I mean, I really hate to say this because I don't mean it to brag because it's not intended that way. But on a weekly basis, multiple times per week, I have people that will break down in tears or will say, wow, like I'm such a different person. But there are a couple instances that stand out. One of them was the president of the Houston Texans,
Mhm.
Jamie Roots. Uh, Jamie and I had spent months together, and then just kind of like getting to know one another. And we had a couple sessions, but I know this story is going to take a strange twist in just a moment, but he was going to do a game plan for life with me. A game plan for
Mhm.
life is 2 days. And so he had hired me to come down to Houston, meet him at the stadium, and we were going to spend 2 days together going through a game plan for life, how to live that highly optimized life. And about a week before, I hadn't heard from him. So I was trying to get a hold of him. And I had called his executive assistant, and she said, "Oh, you haven't heard?" And I said, "No." And she had told me that he had taken his own life. And I thought to myself, you have got to be kidding me. Like the game plan for life is so transformational that you just wish everyone would go through a game plan for life. But I just felt like I was a week too late, and I cried, like it impacted my life so much because I thought to myself, I think, well, the game plan for life is great. People really enjoy it, but it was missing, I think, a sense of urgency from me and thinking, wait a minute, I can talk to somebody and they can tell me they're fine, but I really don't know if they're fine or not. And so to me, like if I say, man, I wish everyone would take a game plan for life, I really do wish that because it's so life transformational. It gives people that sense of purpose and mission. Like they literally will know after 2 days what their purpose of their life is, what their identity is, what their calling is, what their primary strategies according to their identity that they have to accomplish those things, what their assignments are in life, what their personal philosophy is, and to give them an executable plan. Like it gives them, everybody after 2 days knows word for word what those things are.
Yeah.
And so to have that happen, it was so transformational for me, Daylan, that it just changed changed my sense of urgency about what I do. I'll never take it for granted ever again. So that's one. And then the second one, I would say, if I was just to pull something out of a hat, was a friend of mine from Los Angeles. He played at Michigan State as a defensive end, and he's a leader wherever he goes, but he just needed to be unlocked. And he was filled with a lot of hesitation and not sure what he should do with his life. And then to spend 2 days with him and just unlock the deepest parts of him through the
Mhm.
game plan for life has just, I don't know, it's just been mind boggling to watch him involve himself in so many amazing things and to see him uh, manifest and execute on the things that we did in our game plan. And now just to watch from afar, this guy is like, I created a monster in some ways, but he's done so amazing. And now he's investing in his community. He's a desired speaker. He's gotten involved with Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher on Instagram. Like everybody knows Eric. Like he's been a part of that particular business. Like I'm just like watching this guy in awe of what the game plan did for him. And so yeah, and then of course there's all the athletes that I work with that just all of them get better. There isn't
Mhm.
one of them who doesn't. It's just they all get better. So for example, a hockey player that was on the fourth line, I take him through my system and process called Elite Mindset. And there's 12 sessions. And then to watch him go from the fourth line to the third line to the second line to the first line, and then lead his team in scoring in the playoffs. Like you just kind of go, wow, like this is just amazing. So yeah,
Mhm.
just seeing the successes of people is just so motivating to me.
Yeah. Do you have a end goal in terms of maybe, the business brand, your life aspect, your career aspect? Do you have an end goal in terms of what you want to do? Maybe a certain point that you want to be at in terms of maybe sponsoring with certain people or having different, events and conversations with certain, companies or people. Do you have an end goal with what you're doing?
It is again such an insightful question. Like if you would have asked me 3 years ago if I would be speaking at Google and the FBI. Like I would say, oh man, I wish I had died and gone to heaven if I could do that. But you know, last spring I speak to the FBI, and last week I spoke at Google. Like I'm just like, I don't even know. Like I'm just kind of living a dream in some ways. but I don't think it's because of luck. I do think it's because I'm living out my game plan and trusting the game plan, that what it produced or what it taught me was just to go for it. And so, in terms of like my business, yeah, there's some forks in the road. Like one of them is, and I haven't decided yet, to be honest, Dalen.
Mhm.
One of them is to teach other people what I do.
Yeah.
So I could like coach the coaches sort of, or
Yeah.
coach the trainer. Like I really could do that really easily. And I think it would be highly successful. In other words, I could coach somebody, which I totally can do when it comes to a game plan. But I could coach somebody for 6 months straight. And sometimes that slow drip influence is really important, that consistency. But what if I could tell people that like, you could do it all in 2 days? And if you could do all of that in 2 days, and people live busy lives, they're stressful. There's like their lives are already full. But what if I could help you figure out your identity, purpose, calling, mission, assignments, personal flow, like all that stuff? What if I could do it in 2 days? Then that would be pretty powerful. And so the idea for coaches is, well, what if you could do this? And what if you could make a few $1,000s doing this for other people? Like you could take people through a game plan. So part of me is really tempted to teach people how to do that. It just feels like, man, that feels like a whole nother lane of things that I'm
Mhm.
doing. I really love working with athletes. But now am I going to take away working from athletes? Am I going to take away working with a business leader? Am I going to take
Yeah.
away? Yeah, but if I want to multiply myself and my influence, then maybe I do need to train the trainers and train the coaches. So it's a feels like a little bit of a why in the road for me. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just something I can do on the side and train other people to do that. So the end game, working with pro teams, I do. Working with pro athletes, I do. Working with, influential businesses like Google, I do. So I don't know. I don't know what else there is left to conquer.
Mhm.
I'm at that point now where I just get to live the dream.
Yeah.
And my favorite hockey team is the Boston Bruins. So maybe working with the Boston Bruins one day would be a thrill, or I've worked with Seattle Mariners, but yeah, maybe working with another team or franchise might be my favorite thing. But I don't know. Now I'm at a place now where I've kind of reached that dream level. And
Mhm.
so now I feel like, um, I'm just pleasantly surprised with the opportunities that I'm getting. And I think that's a pretty amazing dream life to be living. So, I don't know. I'm not driven by money, so I don't really care as long as I have enough to eat and pay my bills. So I'm not driven by money, but I am driven by having an impact. So I don't know. That's a good question.
Thank you. Could you, because I think people would be interested in understanding, like, what is a day in your life like? Like, I know we were talking about before we started recording, like, you have an absurd amount of meetings every day. Could you give like a breakdown of maybe like even today if possible, but like what's a typical day for you? Like, what time do you get up? Maybe how many meetings are on a typical day for you? What goes through your day-to-day basis? Like, what does a day for you look like?
Yeah, good question. So my day starts at 3:45 a.m.
Wow.
and then I spend about 40 minutes of quiet time just in prayer, meditation, reading my Bible. So I have like that first chunk of my day is really important to me because it gives
Mhm.
me something to chew on all day long. So I did that this morning, and then I'm at the gym by 4:45, and then I put in 2 hours of working out at the gym, and then I'm home by 7, and then I have a quiet time with my wife. So she is typically up by about 5 a.m. and she has her quiet time. So I join her at the end of hers at 5 a.m. We connect or at 7 a.m. We connect on the day. So I'm making sure that we're having that personal connection and communication and emotional intimacy and talking about like what do we need to do for the day, but just kind of checking in with each other on an emotional level. And then by 7:30, I'm in the shower, and by 8 a.m., I'm starting my day. So I have appointments, and the appointments consist of either coaching sessions or prospecting for new clients, or um, yeah. So, or it's like dreaming what my life could look like. So every single day I have at least 15 minutes. I call it blue sky time, where I'm dreaming who are the clients or companies that I'd love to work for. And so, and then when I dream it, I'll spend another 15 minutes trying to make the dream come true. So, for example, when the New England Patriots were Super Bowl caliber, I decided to try and work with Bill Belichick and the Patriots.
Yeah.
So I ended up actually getting or finding Bill Belichick's email, which I don't mind sharing it because he's not there anymore. But his email was the janitor at thepatriots.com. And so it's like, oh, that's just like Bill Belichick, right? Like just, being really smirky and smug, so, but I ended up being, I talked to Nick Saban or talked to, just dreaming, but then actually trying to make the dream come true for like for a 15-minute session of the day. So it's dreaming at 15 minutes and then putting it and then trying to make the dream come true in 15 minutes. But you never know what you're capable of until you try to make the dream
Mm-hmm.
come true. And you'll find out that over time, you get to make a lot of those dreams come true. Not all of them, but you do get to make a lot of them come true. And so, and then it's about coaching and getting, doing my emails and kind of doing the busy work. But so it's like that for the next 4 or 5 hours of every day, just coaching and making connections. And then I probably do, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 podcasts a week. And just communicating through that avenue. So yeah, that's kind of is a typical day. I'm done usually between 4 and 5, and then my evenings are with my wife and my just kind of detoxing from the day, and then doing some chores and things like that. Weekends, I don't work at all. I try and take off as much as I possibly can, so that it's kind of like a Sabbath from my work. Saturday, I'll put in, work around my house, but then Sunday is a complete Sabbath where I don't think about anything work. So I think it's good to take a break from everything. Like even the good things, it's even good to take a break from. So yeah, that's what a typical week might look like. And if I travel and go speak publicly, I'll be in St. Louis, Santa Barbara, Portland, Maine. I've got a lot of things, a lot of places I need to be here in the next few months.
That's amazing. I know we don't got too much time, so I want to leave off on this. It's something that I've always done, and I was recently on a peer show, and he called it fruits of labor. So I'm kind of gonna take that a little bit from him right now. But I always say, if people watching or listening don't take anything away from the conversation that I had, I hope that they take this. So there's 2 questions in one, Gary. So just the first one is, what piece of advice would you want to give to someone watching or listening? And when I say advice, it could just be like life in general, just something that you would want to pass on and feel on to someone's life to help their life be better, help fulfill something that they're doing. What advice would you want to give to someone listening? And secondly, is just something that the domain of my show is legacy, and making sure that I'm doing things in the correct manner that I love and want to be remembered for. So for you, what do you want your legacy to be? When people say the name Gary Chupik, what do you want people to always remember about who you were as a person?
Yeah, I love that. What do I want to leave and what's my legacy? So what do I want to leave with your audience would be, so let me teach you something that I teach professional athletes. And
Mhm.
so you can apply it to your own life in any way, shape, or form. So I've taught it to the FBI, the police, baseball players, football players, players in almost every sport. So let me just give you a little proprietary. It's mine, but I'll just share it with your audience so that they can use it. So there's something called CAPE. CAPE. It's how to perform in high pressure situations. So C stands for control yourself. So think of a baseball player. He takes that deep breath, right? Think of a pitcher, takes that deep breath. So C stands for control yourself. A universal sign to calm down is to take a deep breath or a deep sigh. So C stands for control yourself. A stands for assess the situation. You don't need to spend a lot of time in assessment, but think of like a baseball player. He's getting the sign, assessing what the sign is from his coach. He's assessing the pitch count. He's assessing the weather. He's assessing where the runners are on the bases, if there are any. He's assessing the situation. P stands for make a plan. So plan, if the ball comes to me, what am I going to do with it? The plan might be to throw a slider on the outside corner. So you make a plan. And then E stands for execute, which is a combination of trust your plan, trust your training, and trust your instincts. So you have to be able to play loose without hesitation. So that's the trust your instincts. So everybody can cape, right? Let's say you're even going to conversation with a friend or a loved one, and you can control yourself assess the situation, make a plan, and execute. So that's what I'd like to leave with your audience, is how professional elite athletes think. They think by caping on a regular basis. And then the legacy that I want to leave, man, I just want a generational impact. I just know that if I can just add a drop to somebody's life, then I don't get to determine what the impact is. I don't get to determine the outcome. All I can do is just leave one drop. So it doesn't mean that I'm a game changer for anybody, but if I can just add a drop, and if everybody adds a drop to that other person's life, then they will have a full life. And I just want to do my part. So I want to have a generational impact in people's lives.
I love that. Thank you so much. This is insightful. I enjoyed this so much. Enjoy hearing you. I took some of the fruits of labor that you shared, and wrote them down to hopefully and apply them in my own life as well. So I hope someone watching and listening was able to do the same thing. So thank you so much, Mr. Chupik, for joining me and sharing some of your gems and your wisdom with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and you're a great host. You ask wonderful questions. Well done.
I appreciate that so much, sir. Thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoy. Leave a like and subscribe. Even with your interaction of subscribing and leaving a like, we get to continue having meaningful conversations like this. So please subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave a comment about what was your favorite part that Gary mentioned or talked about. You know, what impact did he maybe have on what you're going through in your day-to-day life. So appreciate you guys as always. God bless. I love everyone. Thank you so much.